Welcome to the Industry Trends and Insights Show, a reliability radio series with your host, Bob Francis, Research and Strategy Leader at Reliability Web. Each episode is designed to bring you key findings from the Industry Trends and Insights Research Program, interviews with leaders in the community, and the latest innovations shaping maintenance, reliability, and asset management. Now, here's today's episode.
Welcome to the Industry Trends and Insights podcast on Reliability Radio. I'm Bob Francis, your host. Joining us on this episode, Malavika Tohani from Verdantix. She's the research director there. Our audience knows Malavika very well. Malavika was with us at the International Maintenance Conference on our analyst panel in 2026, and we're excited to have the opportunity to sit down with Malavika. We're currently recording this episode in Austin, Texas, at the Octave On Tour conference as they complete their transition, Malavika, from Hexagon, and now the new brand is launched. The stock ticker is trading, and we saw the big NASDAQ announcement 2 weeks ago. Give me your first impressions, Malavika. We were together 1 year ago in Las Vegas when Hexagon announced the rollout of Octave. How do you think it's gone?
Yeah, I think it's been a busy year for them for sure. They've had to, of course, separate themselves in a way, in an identity from, Hexagon. Nobody is going to take away the kind of thread that still binds them with Hexagon, but really to establish themselves as a separate sort of an entity, think about product roadmaps, where they want to take the business, where they want to take the brand, obviously pacify any sort of concerns that the customers would have had. Right. And I think that'll be the biggest one that they've had to deal with. And then, of course, there have been many changes to the kind of C-suite as well, with Jay joining as CPO.
Right.
Of course, Matthias was always, at the helm of it all. So I guess, certainly a busy year for them. It's been great to see that journey as well, with this one, them doing this world tour starting in Austin now. So it's been good to see some of the announcements, the vision a little bit come to life as well. So it's been a busy year for them.
So as you think back about the Octave event last year and then our time together at IMC, as you look across 2026 so far and the different user meetings and industry conferences you've been able to attend, or your team on behalf of Verdantix, where do you see the market going? There's obviously a lot of change afoot. The term AI or agentic is used everywhere, and our customers is the user community out there sort of swimming in buzzwords, or do you think some of the solution providers are starting to get some traction?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and something that we've been observing quite a lot. I mean, of course, everything started, November 23, I want to say, isn't it? When ChatGPT became the thing to be used. And then we thought, oh gosh, what changes is it going to bring? And it certainly brought massive changes. I would say for me, it's been a very significant year, 2026. I've seen certainly a shift, especially from customers. They still have their doubts, especially industry, right? As I think Matthias was mentioning yesterday, it's AI for consequence. The consequences of getting something wrong with AI is massive for industry. It's not like the consumer sector or retail or, wherever else it's being used. So there are still doubts. There are still some trust issues, but I think it's come leaps and bounds in terms of customers are curious, and not just curious, they want to implement it. So they are looking forward to how vendors are offering certain capabilities, and I was at another conference earlier this year, and it was very encouraging to see some of the large enterprises really saying that not using even agentic, right? It's really just coming up in industry, but there were customers who were saying, we need to use it. We have to use it. And they were not talking about it in the context, again, of replacing human workers. That was never the intention. I think it was like, I know we can get more efficient with it, I can finally start using people for more productive jobs and, for more like value adding sort of tasks rather than maybe things that they didn't want to do themselves, like admin stuff. But I think they're much, much more open. Customers are much, much more open to using Gen AI, agentic AI even now. So, yeah.
And to carry that forward a little bit, and I think we talked about this last year, the connection to employee retention plays large here. And Matthias mentioned it yesterday. Jay mentioned it in the sort of product roadmap discussion. And in the operate domain breakout session yesterday, led by Joe Nichols,
Yeah.
it was brought up a third time. So that tells me that Octave, and they're not the only ones, but there is this realization out there that there's two realities happening as I see it. There is the bad side of a push from management who is getting pressure from shareholders, and they rush out a quote unquote AI project or an agentic project, but without proper data governance. And the frontline team members, whether that's maintenance technician, whether that's a reliability engineer, whatever the role, those seasoned veterans who have been taking care of the plant or the production line were quick to point out, wait a minute, I know that's supposed to be this fancy dancy artificial intelligence, but it's not intelligent. The answers it's giving is wrong because the models were not trained properly. The data was incomplete or biased or just bad data. And so what we've been seeing in the industry trends and insights research is there was this increase in data trust about a year ago from 24 to 25. It rose in our data about 12%. And then in 2026, it's dropped 9% so far. And as I have been investigating that and calling some of the survey respondents and saying, well, tell me about this. This is odd. I'm hearing this story of, management forced X AI solution on us, to either too broadly defined or narrowly defined, but not properly trained. And, it set back. It instilled in a already skeptical workforce a bit of distrust. And so they're having to regroup and they're going to have to hit the reset button and win the trust back of them frontline employees who are already kind of skeptical, not sure, does this threaten my job, not threaten my job? This will make me much more efficient and effective. But if it's giving me hallucinations, if it's giving me wrong answers, if it can't help me perform this task that it was supposedly trained for, they set themselves back. And thus we've seen this decline in data trust as a metric that Reliability Web covers.
No, absolutely. And I guess, there could be multiple, again, reasons for it as well, isn't it? As you said, I think, everybody started talking about the scalability of AI. But again, we always say you have to start small. And that data piece is so crucial, right? Getting that right. And you cannot. So you need to put enough guardrails around it. Data governance actually becomes super important.
Right.
And if you start very big, thinking, oh God, obviously we want to start, we want to do this really fast and, we want to implement it quickly and then, get started with it. And then we can get rid of half of our workforce or, see improvements of 50% in our efficiency or performance or whatever it is. I think that's also setting yourself up for failure. You always have to make those small sort of increments, prove the worth of it, that it works, and then start thinking about, okay, when I start scaling this, what type of other challenges, whether that's around data, whether that's around governance, that's around contextualization, that's around change management. I mean, that's the biggest piece, You have to have people on board this. You have to have skilled people on board this who know what you're doing and can contribute. So I think if you start small, and I've seen, again, different conferences, speaking to even customers, right? Where have they really seen the value? It's not suddenly been that they've, multiple sites. They've immediately rolled out and seen 100% like success with it.
Right.
They've all started small and then start to scale it up.
Yeah. In the world of heavy manufacturing and heavy assets that you and I are probably most familiar with. I won't name the vendor, but I did see a really effective root cause analysis agentic AI that was well trained on multiple root cause analysis methodologies and helped the operator walk through the classical RCA steps.
Yep.
And that was super, super impactful. And this particular, I think why it stuck with me so much, Malavika, is this is a large supplier that makes both hardware and software and has a very large services arm. I mean, this is a big multinational with devices and controls and all kinds of stuff, which as I experienced their event and talked to their customers, my takeaway was it's because they took that holistic enterprise-wide, exactly as we have heard this week at the Octave event, which is you have to, while you can develop and scale some agentic AI and some specific agents to help employees with specific tasks, if it's not done in the context of the full asset lifecycle, understanding how this new tool, this new efficiency, and most importantly, the data will be shared and used across many other departments you're not even thinking about right now.
Yep.
And so this, tell us about, am I off on an island here, or do you see the importance of context in a asset lifecycle from inception and the design phase all the way through the retirement of that asset?
It's so important. And I mean, contextualization within a certain, I mean, whether you're looking at build, construct, operate, whatever phase of the project you're looking at, contextualization within that sort of a life cycle is important. But then having that big picture, and that is kind of like the vision, isn't it? It happens, I would say, pretty decently at a product level or an equipment level, where you're designing an equipment, you're using, say, 3D visualizations, digital twins, whatever technology you want to use. And it's been used for a long time, right? I mean, there are many. NASA obviously was the first one to start using kind of digital twins at that product or equipment level. It's still done. And then you get the feedback once you start kind of observing how that piece of equipment's actually operating in the field. You gather all of that data that gets fed into the design phase again. And then you hopefully make some tweaks and iterations to the product. And then you're producing a much better sort of an equipment again. Obviously, scaling that up on a process level, at the entire plant level, and at the entire asset life cycle, yes, absolutely. It's a big thing, but super important. And if we can start doing that, if we can close the loop on gaining that feedback, and then it kind of flowing across from the design, build, operate, maintain, protect. Yeah, that's the kind of ideal scenario. And for that, contextualized data is so important, because we talk a lot about, and I think it was there at IMC last year as well, Bob, designing for reliability.
Yes.
That's
right.
It's a great sort of a concept. And I think we all should be thinking about that. And it's not just around increasing performance and efficiency when you start thinking about the asset life cycle and how, the information and data needs to flow. It's around sustainability as well. And,
Sure.
You'll start then seeing an impact on how you can maybe reduce the impact that you're having in terms of carbon emissions or whatever the sustainability metric is, right? And we did a report, we looked into this a little bit a couple of years ago, where we're talking about, certain assets, when they do reach their end of life, is there a way to kind of use a lot of the material and the parts, especially with all of the raw material shortage that's happening, and can be fed back into the design phase? So you're still producing something completely new, but you are recycling, not in fact recycling, you're completely pulling it apart and manufacturing a completely new equipment. But then all of those get fed in if you have that sort of a data flow across all of the different phases.
Right. Every industry has its version of that scenario. Last week, I was speaking in the pulp and paper track at that industry event. And, I think you and I know this just from our research work, but to hear directly from the big names in the paper business. And one of the executives described to me, he said, Bob, I know the history of Meridian and where you came from, ExxonMobil, Dow, DuPont, you come from the big oil and gas, big chemical, view of heavy assets and the importance of keeping the plant safe. And he said, but here is the direct parallel between the paper industry and the refining industry. The paper industry has not built a new mill in 20 years. There hasn't been a net new refinery built in the U.S. in many, many years. So it's all about extending the asset life of those current assets and maybe expanding capacity a little bit. I mean, certainly Marathon and Valero and some of the refiners have, expanded some of their existing refineries, but it comes back to a plant that was originally thought to run through 2025, now being refreshed and refurbished. And because they had a handle on their maintenance, because they had a good reliability program, they're going to see that asset live 5-10 years longer, which in the world of capital investment is hundreds of millions of dollars.
Especially the pressures they're facing right now, isn't it? Anything that can be extended for a few more years certainly works.
Right. Okay, we're going to have to put a period on it right there. Malavika, thank you for joining the Industry Trends and Insights webcast. Folks, if you're listening along, this will be available out on Reliability Web TV and Reliability Radio. And you can look forward to Malavika and some of her associates at Verdantix joining many more episodes coming soon, as we always want to bring you the best in research and insights across the industrial technology stack. Thank you, Malavika.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
How can folks reach you, follow your work?
Yep. Please look at Verdantix.com, and actually all of our research on any technology, not just industrial tech, but across real estate, sustainability, everything is complementary for practitioners, so buyers of technology. So please go to Verdantix Vantage, register yourself, and you can have access to all of the research that we produce.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.